Chapter 5. Directors help to shape the company's destiny, to safeguard its interests and ensure its profitable performance. Since directors' powers are collective, individual directors have no specific power to make decisions or take actions. However, boards may delegate responsibility for certain activities to individual directors or committees. The extent to which the responsibilities may be delegated should be set out in the articles. As discussed previously, all directors have three principal legal duties, which are often referred to interchangeably as fiduciary obligations. These are to direct the management of the business and affairs of the company, Section 60B of the Companies Act; to act honestly and in good faith with a view to the best interests of the company, Section 99(1)(a) of the Companies Act; and to exercise the care, diligence, and skill of a reasonably prudent person, Section 99(1)(b) of the Companies Act. In executing their fiduciary functions, boards are responsible for various tasks. These include directing, delegating, and monitoring, risk oversight and audit committee, internal audit, conflict of interest, compliance function, and whistleblower policy. These tasks were discussed in the Introduction to the Corporate Governance Maturity Framework module. Our research and practical work in the field has suggested that the area where clarity, if required, most lies within the area of directing, delegating, and monitoring. Thus, this module will look specifically at the specific areas related to it. Indicator 8. Directing, delegating, and monitoring. Boards have a variety of responsibilities related to the monitoring, guiding, and directing of management and the enterprise. Some of the key responsibilities of the board are to guide and review corporate strategy as proposed by management, guide and review major plans of action, including annual budgets and/or business plans, agree and set performance objectives with management and monitor management's implementation of plans, evaluate, select, and dismiss the CEO, oversee the setting of remuneration practices and approve remuneration plans, oversee major capital expenditures, monitor the effectiveness of the company's governance practices. In best practice, the board fulfills certain expected responsibilities, establishing an effective link with owners, directing management, and assuring that the executive adheres to board policies through monitoring. Reviews and guides corporate strategy as proposed by management. Reference to good strategy and bad strategy. Analysis. Strategic policy. Planning. Reviews and guides major plans of action, including annual budgets and/or business plans. Time span. Is it far enough into the future? Need to review it annually and realign if necessary. Is there cohesion and alignment? Are there good key performance indicators beyond money, lead indicators, and lag indicators? Is it in line with the board's risk appetite? Have the risks been identified and addressed? Did the board have enough policies in place to guide management in the development of the policy? Agree and set performance objectives with management and monitor management's implementation of plans. Performance objectives has two components. Ends objective, that which we seek to achieve as a firm. Means objectives, the actions and milestones that will lead to the achievement of the objectives. It's important not to take over from management in this, but rather to test assumptions, to offer guidance, and to hold the CEO accountable for implementation. Ends are defined by the board. Means are determined by management. Evaluate, select, and dismiss the CEO. Director's checklist for chief executive succession. Are company strategy and executive succession explicitly linked? Is the board process in place for evaluating the CEO and potential successors? Does the board explicitly assess the CEO's management of a succession plan for the next generation of company leaders? Is the board leader driving the succession process for the CEO and direct reports? Is the board working to retain a high-performing chief executive, but also to keep capable successors? Does the board have a member who could serve as CEO in the wake of an unexpected exit if no insider is yet ready for succession? Has the board compiled comparative data on the inside CEO candidates from those who had worked with all of them? Have directors had direct contact with both the CEO candidates and the information sources to verify information about them? If executive search consultants are retained, have they been vetted to ensure that there are no conflicts of interest? Does the board ensure candidate confidentiality? Has the board gathered independent references on the outside candidates? Is succession planning embedded in the company's culture? Ram Charan 2014, in addition to Fit with the Company's Central Idea and Strategy, page 114, business acumen, intellectual resourcefulness, sound judgment, industry knowledge, adds value to the R&D process, ability to drive innovation, ambassadorial skills, leadership qualities, sets high standards and gets exceptional results, communication skills, drives change, develops and empowers a high-talent team, creates a sense of urgency, and is a role model to the organization. Personal characteristics: understands one's own strengths and weaknesses, has stamina, demonstrates competency and leadership, is resilient, and a continuous learner. 10 principles, page 122, or checklist. Jacques, agreed performance and actuals. Director's checklist for a CEO candidate's strategic fit. What are the 2 or 3 most critical requirements for executive leadership, given the company's expected competitors and future opportunities? What are the 2 or 3 most distinctive leadership talents required of the candidates, given that most finalists come with a proven leadership record? Is there convergence between the several criteria that best define a strategic match between the company's leadership requirements and a candidate's capabilities at a given moment? Director's checklist for spotting a failing CEO. Absence of clear strategy. Lack of focus on a few dominant priorities, dislike of follow-through, under anticipation of unintended consequences, over-reliance on the decision-making of a senior executive, captive of special advisors, functional executive appointed to line position without line experience. Director's checklist for retaining, reviving, or relieving the chief executive. Are CEO mishaps an aberration that coaching by the board leader can overcome? If missteps are more than an aberration, what additional corrective actions are warranted? Is the CEO capable of strengthening the leadership capabilities required for full revival? Does the board have information about the root cause of a company's decline? Do most of the directors believe that the CEO is faltering? Is the board's annual evaluation of the CEO focused on leadership indicators, not just financial metrics? Have directors and the CEO coached other executives on how to work with the board? Does the board learn directly from and about executives who report to the CEO? If moving toward relieving the CEO, are most or all of the directors of common mind? Are performance metrics and severance terms well in place before advancing towards dismissal? Oversee the setting of remuneration practices and approve remuneration plans. Be careful. Focus on real business to ensure health of the organization rather than just short-term financial gains. Engage compensation consultants if necessary. Oversees major capital expenditures. Conflict of interests. Due process so as to ensure that maximum value for company. Be careful with the limits. Don't set them too low. Instead, ensure that you have good policies that allow management to decide and you are able to hold them to account. Consider the risks and manage these. Internal audit is an option. Internal control systems. Also see course dealing with third-party risk and code. Monitor the effectiveness of the company's governance practices. The company's BOD charter is the basis. Annual review. Look at the factors in this guide. Do the self-assessment and identify areas of improvement. TTCGC says that every year you review. The hypothesis formed for the previous question about why so much time is being reported to be spent on board matters is corroborated by data illustrated here. Overall, these answers strengthen the view that most boards are very hands-on in operations. 60% say the board is involved in operations. One implication of this is that governance and management roles are not separated, and therefore governance is weakened. Risk oversight. Board must determine the degree of risk that the company will accept to achieve its goals. Risk policy should identify all major risks and ensure that those with a high impact and a high probability of occurrence are effectively managed. Internal audit. Internal audit's role is to monitor and evaluate the company's internal control environment to validate that controls are effective in mitigating risks. To maintain their independence, open communication between the board, audit committees, external auditor, and internal audit function should be facilitated. Compliance function. The compliance function provides reasonably assurance that the company is complying with applicable laws and regulations, as well as internal codes of conduct, policies, and procedures. Maintain a practical relationship with internal audit. Ensure the compliance function has open communication with the audit committee or board. Policy development. Ethical codes of conduct. Conflicts of interest. Related party transactions. Collusion between offices and vendors. Confidentiality. Ensuring adequate levels of compensation. Consequences for breaches of policy. Director's checklist for leading risk. Is the company's risk appetite well defined by directors and disciplined by executives? Is the board well informed and accepting of the company's risk management strategies? Are directors regularly updated on company risk via the board's audit or risk committee? Does the board include directors with prior executive experience in managing risks? Are the company's risk management practices preemptive rather than reactive? Does the company properly balance downside risks and business opportunities? Is risk excessive, well defined, and properly avoided? Is risk management embedded in operating practices and in the mindset of managers throughout the ranks? Has the company prepared for low probability but high consequence events? Does the board lead with management in conducting due diligence and deciding on major acquisitions and other highly risky transactions? Has the board considered creating an advisory body?